It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, everyone, it's time for another stable episode. Today, I want to do a stable operations overview. So, anyone who works in operations should already know this, but we're going to do a quick overview and talk about where stable fits in. So, operations is a daily support of existing products or services. In IT, operations is considered anything from network support to running batch jobs at night to monitoring large websites to the administration of layers of middleware and databases. Backups and antivirus and disaster recovery also fall under this area too. Operations tasks are thought of as recurring on a scheduled basis. A typical operations model is the schedule, do, check, adjust cycle. In this model, activities identified to be completed are scheduled for the end of the business day, or the end of the month, or whenever needed, or whatever is necessary, and then started. This is the first step, schedule. It's common for an operations group to have a combination of automated and manual tasks. The automated tasks should have a historical log indicating they completed successfully, and an alert mechanism when they don't. The operators will know if the manual activity is completed successfully or not because they are performing them in real time. This is what's called the do step. If no alert mechanism is in place, the operator must check to be sure the action is completed successfully, which is the check step. If the activity abended, it is examined and rerun, usually with some minor adjustment. If everything worked as planned, the cycle repeats itself. If something needs an adjustment, the process is adjusted in the adjust step. This process repeats itself and evolves as the organization's IT needs grow. The two areas that often get neglected in operations are scheduling regular disaster recovery tests and scheduling regular maintenance on operational assets. I remember specifically when we're talking about disaster recovery, I was working with an organization who developed law enforcement software, and there was a system in place to do all of the checks on this software for disaster recovery. But there were a few things that weren't necessarily tested. And we had a very large client that they were appealing to. And I remember specifically that they wanted to test it in the environment live. Now, that would be fine and dandy if this was not jail management software. So we went to one of the top security facilities and we were going to test the software for disaster recovery. And one of the mechanisms in the software that needed to be tested that was not tested, but definitely needed to be tested, is an event of some type of disaster. So, if there was a fire, an earthquake, or a hurricane, or depending where it is, whatever it is, a natural disaster takes place, and it's a matter of life and death. The mechanism that they were trying to test was the software piece that allowed to open all of the doors. So if there's a major fire, it would open every cell, it would open every door to allow people, a humane way to get to a place of refuge away from where the fire or major event was happening, which makes total sense. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So in a step of testing the software, they got everything installed. They installed the update. They were ready to go. They went ahead and deleted the previous version, got it all nice and clean. It looked nice and trim. Then I said, "Oh well, let's test the piece of functionality now." So they tested, and all of the doors opened just like they were supposed to. Every cell door in the entire prison opened at the same time. They said, "Okay, let's shut these down," and they went to close them back up, and that part of the software did not operate correctly. Now, I want you to put yourself in this position for a moment. You're in a major prison facility, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of prisoners there. And there are only a handful of guards there who are doing all the monitoring and whatnot because everything's run by computer systems. And you just opened up all the cell doors, and now you can't close them. Now, the prisoners were aware it was a test and are usually pretty cool about stuff like that. But when they realized there was a problem and the doors weren't going to close, some people started to get some ideas. We'll leave it at that, right? It's one of these things where in the weirdest times or at the strangest moment when you don't consider disaster recovery, that's when it's certainly going to bite you. So the fact that stable considers disaster recovery and how you're going to do things, and the fact that you need to check it is incredibly important. I know around 9/11, people were, or not 9/11, or in the year 2000, Y2K, people were scared to death to test things. And after 9/11, people were scared to test disaster recovery in case another major incident like that ever happened again. So both were examples. I think that if you are not testing disaster recovery, then you are setting yourself up for failure. So don't be that shop where you have disaster recovery plan in theory, but it never gets tested until the real emergency. Test it regularly, perhaps every 6 months, over a long weekend, over a holiday weekend. Depending on the type of product or service you offer, you should be able to organize when is a good time to do this. Also, learn to think of your assets as a fleet. Schedule routine maintenance for them every so often. If you need to, defrag all server drives, check average CPU saturation over time, check swap file size to RAM size ratios, check all your firewalls, get rid of any unnecessary apps or fancy background desktop graphics that make servers run slow. Over time, with a lot of operators, people get in and mess with stuff. You need to be proactive to solve these problems. Now, one of the things that I found was interesting is this example really did focus a lot on technology and on software, but it didn't need to. I think that in any type of operations, you can make sure that you have stability. And whether it's testing software to make sure the jail doors close, or whether it's testing a product to make sure that it has longevity or that it doesn't have longevity and breaks down as it needs to. I think that what we need to do is understand that in order for us to have stable operations, we need to not only have plans of what to do in case something happens, but we need to test those plans and make sure that we're ahead of the game so that we're not waiting till the last second to figure out that a hurricane has hit New Orleans and the pumps that pump water are broken. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you took something away from it. If you want to learn more about the stable framework, or if you want to learn more about any topic, feel free to reach out to us. Learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to assist you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.